What up, dudes? It's Gaz, and welcome back to the Warframe video. So, today we're going over my wish list for new Incarnon weapons. With Duviri coming out and all these new things to cover, such as Incarnon unlockers, new arcanes, new missions, etc., etc., a lot of people might have not realized that DE actually has an Echoes of Duviri update that they're working on right now, which will give us more things in Duviri. And I'm not going to confirm this for sure, like 100%, but they did say they do want to add new Incarnon unlockers in the future. Now, I'm not sure if those will come in Echoes of Duviri. I hope they will. But I'm going to go over my top 10 wish list on weapons that are outdated that I'd like to see an Incarnon adapter added for. And now, of course, my top 10 list and your top 10 list will be super different because, I mean, these are weapons that I feel like need some upgrades, maybe some weapons I have nostalgic value for, etc., etc. So we'll be going over that today. Now, things to remember for the criteria of this list. The way that the Incarnon upgrades work, basically every single one, besides the melees, you press the alternate fire button, and it switches to a different mode. So, for example, on the Boltor, normal mode, it's normal Boltor. You push the alternate fire mode, it goes to triple bullet Boltor. Or for the Strawn, it goes from normal shotgun to fire launcher, or whatever, rocket launcher thing. So, weapons that we choose for this list cannot already have a pre-existing alternate fire. Anything that uses that button is potentially going to be off limits. Now, we might make one exception at the end, but yeah, for the most part, weapons cannot have an alternate fire already. Also, weapons can already not be very good. If a weapon is already, like, you know, a meta-breaking or meta-defining weapon, like the Ignis Wraith, I'm not going to put Ignis Wraith on this list, even though I'm sure a lot of people would like an Ignis Wraith Incarnon. I think we all know it doesn't really need it. Although it would be cool, wouldn't it? Alright, let's start the list. Now, if you enjoy these types of videos, make sure you're subbed to the channel. We do daily Warframe video uploads. Also, check out the live stream channel. You're watching some live stream footage right now. We did a lot of discussion for this video on the live stream as well. So if you want to be part of these types of discussion videos, another reason to check out the live stream channel. And I will briefly showcase some of this stuff in the Simulacrum as well. Okay, so let's start off with number 10. And number 10 is going to be the Ballistica. The Ballistica is a pistol, and I'm trying not to put too many melees on this list. The Ballistica is a pistol that actually has many variants to it. We're in the Simulacrum right now, and the Ballistica Prime is right here. It's got pretty good base stats. We'll show the base stats. These things have good base stats, but nobody uses them is the thing. And there's actually 3 variants. There's the Ballistica Prime, which actually makes ghosts when it kills enemies, which is really random, but it's cool. The Rakta Ballistica, which is the Syndicate version, which will make a viral AoE. It's a red veil weapon, and the Ballistica Normal, which who even remembers that exists. So Ballistica Prime actually can do some pretty good damage. I've got a full build on it here for the most part. And yeah, you can just like, what it does basically is you just tap fire it. It's a burst fire crossbow. If you hold down the shot, it will be a singular, like, gigantic crossbow bolt. As you can see, when you get a kill, you get like a ghost enemy that lasts for like, I don't even know how long, like 10 seconds, I'm guessing. So it can do some okay damage. Now we got a kill, we can actually, you know, pretty much one-shot this guy. It can do good damage, for sure. But why would you be using this thing? It's single target. The ghost army is, like, they last for 10 seconds. They just don't do much. So an alt fire on this, a Ballistica Prime, Incarnon could make it one of the strongest pistols in the game. And also, this thing has been in the game for a long time. I've always thought it looks so cool. I just don't have any reason to really use it, even though the damage is definitely there. So that's going to be my first choice for number 1. Maybe for the Incarnon alt fire, they can make it where, like, it fires a gigantic, like a trebuchet, I think they're called, or like a gigantic ballista. How about like a ballista? It's called a ballistica. How about we get like a giant ballista, like arrow the size of like this door I'm standing in the game right now. It's like an arcoplasm or crossbow bolt that will like dismember enemies or something really hardcore. That could be cool, but you know, it's got okay base stats. I just showed you. It has good base. It can kill stuff in the Simulacrum, but it's just too boring for most people to run. All right, that is number 10, the Ballistica in general, because remember, it would be for any Ballistica. And there are variants too, so you could choose which one you want to go for. All right, moving on to number 9. Speaking of variants, the Opticore is going to be number 9. Now, the Opticore has the Opticore Vandal and the Opticore Normal. And you might be like, why would you pick the Vandal? Well, surprisingly enough, the Opticore Vandal and the Opticore Normal have very different base stats. The Opticore Vandal feels a lot more like a Ferox, honestly, if you try the Tenant Ferox out. So look at how different these base stats are on the Opticore. Alright, so we got the Opticore Vandal I'm holding right now, 200 base damage. The Opticore normal has 500 base damage. And the crit stats are a little bit lower, but yeah. It's also got 2 seconds. It's got double the reload speed, or almost double the reload speed. It's got a lot slower charge rate. So you have over double the base damage, but also over double the charge rate as well. So this thing, it can hit hard, and that's where it would be nice. Having an Incarnon unlocker on this would make it where you think, okay, do I want to go with the fast firing one for maybe more status procs or whatever, or do I want to go for the hard hitting one to make sure any Thrax I shoot this at is guaranteed dead? Now, the Opticore is okay. It's really fallen by the wayside. Like, I don't even consider doing Thermia Fractures to get this worth it anymore, when it used to be back in the day. I mean, it can do some okay damage for sure. I think the Ghost Exo Goxdan made an immortal turret. Well, that's a bug for the future. So yeah, this is okay damage. It's not really like meta damage at all. It's like a single target bow kind of too. So if they were to give this thing an Incarnon unlocker, you know, the pretty good rule of thumb is just make it all AoE, right? So make this thing more AoE. Maybe make it turn into a full auto. How about you make the Incarnon unlocker for the Opticore full auto Opticore that can just like blast away like 10 enemies at a time or something. That could be cool. I think the Miter one might end up being similar to that, where it's like a full auto, like kind of AoE situation. So I could definitely see them doing something like that. That's number 9. And of course, the cool thing about that is that the Opticore normal and Opticore Vandal are so different that it would be a real decision. And they'd probably be very different feeling weapons, just because of the fire rate difference. Alright, speaking of single target, I got a double whammy for you on tier 8. We're actually going to be going for 2 different weapons. Now, the weapons I'm going to go for here are generic sniper rifles that are not the meta ones for Eidolon fights. And that's going to really come down to the Snipetron. I don't have the Snipetron on me, apparently. I have to go claim that for the Foundry. Snipetron Vandal and the Volcar Wraith. These weapons are both very, very similar. And they are both not Eidolon meta weapons. But they are good snipers, to a degree. So the Volcar Wraith is actually one of my old favorite weapons of all time. This thing has not the best crit stats, and I don't know a full build on it, so I'm not going to even show like a damage test. It has good Riven stats, thankfully, but yeah, it just isn't. It isn't as consistent crit-wise as the Rubico Prime. It's not as consistent crit-wise as the Vectis Prime, and the Snipetron Vandal is pretty much the same weapon, with instead of impact damage, it's got puncture damage. So the Snipetron Vandal and the Volcar Wraith are just, you know, generic sniper rifles that don't do anything special. I believe the Volcar has a special augment. Yeah, it does. Meticulous aim, increasing headshot damage by 105%, but it decreases your body shot damage. Think of how good this would be with an Incarnon. So make it where we have no Incarnon snipers from what I remember. So these would be the first Incarnon snipers, either the Volcar or the Snipetron. And I don't know, what would you guys, let me know in the comments, what would you guys do for an Incarnon sniper? Maybe make it like fire off a tracer round and like the Buzzlock kind of. Make it like the Buzzlock where it will home in on enemies' heads from like across the room or something cool. And it wouldn't require a tracer round, just it does it all the time or something. But yeah, this thing is just not as, like, we can compare the base stats right now in the Rubico Prime. Once the Rubico Prime came out, I actually used to do Eidolon hunts with the Volcar Wraith. Once this thing came out, I'm like, no, this is so much better crit. It's not even a comparison to me. So the only thing the Volcar's really got going nowadays is the increased Riven stats, and I guess it got a little bit higher. It's got a lot higher base damage actually, but crits is more important for the most part. So that's gonna be my number 8. And if I had the Snipetron Vandal, they're pretty much the exact same weapon, honestly. Let's move on to number 7. And again, like I said earlier in the video, this is my list. If you made your list, it'd probably be a lot different. But I'm going to go for one of my most used weapons of all time, the Atarax. And this is going to be going over nostalgia from the past. So if you remember back in the day, this mod right here, Maiming Strike, was the meta. 150% increased crit chance while sliding. The math on this was changed massively in the past. It used to be a lot better, and now it's not very good. So I'd say for the Atarax, or just any good whip in general, maybe even the Skoldiak would be fine too. Make it Incarnon whip, and make the evolution mode. It wouldn't just be like the Sancti Magistar with 30 extra combo hits and a little bit wind-up speed. It wouldn't be like the Furax where it makes a 2 damage fire AoE. No, if you make it a Atarax Incarnon, I want them to have pre-nerf Maiming Strike up in here. So make it where once you're in Incarnon mode on the Atarax or the Skoldiak, you have a type of old Maiming Strike. So that would mean red crits on slide attacks, you know, stuff like that. Mostly just red crits on slide attacks. Maybe you can throw in, you know, a status chance increase too. So Make it Incarnon where you have unnerfed maiming from back in the day to some degree. Maybe not entirely unnerfed. But remember, now melee weapons no longer shoot through walls, or hit through walls. So maiming strike going through walls and like cheesing everything would not really be a thing anymore, because AoE weapons are already doing that quite well in the first place. Indeed, it refuses to fix it anyway. So you could do that for the Atarax. I would say any whip would work, but Atarax is probably the best because that's what I got the most nostalgia for. If you look at my profile, I think the Atarax is still the most used weapon on my profile. Yeah, Atarax, still the most used melee. So I would really like this one. I think a lot of other people would like this one too, but yeah, Skoldiak would also be fine. Alright, that's going to be number 7. Let's move on to number 6. And our number 6 is going to be one, we really were racking our minds on the stream about which one we should pick here. And for number 6, I'm going to go with the Galatine. From what I remember, there are no heavy blade Incarnons yet, and that's what we were trying to go for a lot of these. And the Galatine is a pretty old weapon that used to be really good, and we have the Galatine Prime here. But the big thing about the Galatine Prime versus other heavy blades is versus the Gram Prime. Look at these stats on the Gram Prime, the Galatine Prime. The Galatine Prime just has overall worse stats than the Gram, besides in like attack speed. And you can definitely notice the attack speed difference. But yeah, just look at this. I mean, the Gram Prime is just better in almost every category possible. Besides 0.1 meter less range. Apparently the slam attack is worse for some reason. And yeah, it just... The Galatine Prime, it can still get some work done nowadays, but look at how old this build is. This is a build from when corrosive procs were actually good. And, you know, corrosive procs can fully strip armor. It can't do that anymore. It's got good status chance. It's got good slash weighting. It can get some big slash procs. But I think, let's put the Galatine back on top as the king of heavy blades. Especially because Cleaving Whirlwind also got nerfed, like, years ago, and it's not as good as it used to be, which is part of what made this so crazy. So... I say Galatine Incarnon. Now, what would you do to the Galatine Incarnon? Well, what you could just do is make it... Here's an easy way to do it. The thing that the Gram Prime is better than at, make this better than the Gram Prime at. So just give it more crit chance, crit damage, more status. I mean, it's a lot of stuff to have to compete with, but you could definitely make this work. And, of course, increased base damage would put it above the Gram Prime in the base damage department alone. So there's some things you could do to this. I'm looking at just mostly nostalgic weapons here, and this is definitely on... a high tier of the list. It's just a generic melee greatsword, though. Nothing really special here. Yeah, this stance right here used to do crazy damage back in the day, and they nerfed it. It's funny, too, because you still stumble like it's supposed to be super OP. Alright, moving on to number 5. There's a lot of weapons that could be on this list, of course, but I think the Cerberus, it's got really decent stats, but it's so generic. So I think the Cerberus Prime should get the next should be the next burst generic rifle that gets an Incarnon Unlocker. This thing, you know, it has good ribbon stats, it has good base stats, it can get some work done, but it's single target is the thing. And now that we have all these, like we have the Burston's not here yet, but the Burston will probably just completely dominate this thing. And it can get some good damage, actually. Like, I'm not saying it can't do damage, it's just so boring. Why would you use this besides fashion frame purposes? It's a very nice looking weapon. It can do some good Hunter Munitions procs, and I'm not even like fully modded for damage right now, but... yeah, this thing is just so generic and boring. It has variants, too. Another thing we are looking at on this list is variants. There's a Cerberus Prime, there's a Dex Cerberus, there's a normal Cerberus, and they're all like pretty much the exact same thing. Just a burst fire rifle that can do some good Hunter Munitions procs, some good... So it's slash weighted, too. Like, this is you would think this would be like a very nice weapon, and it is a very nice weapon. It's just a very generic, boring weapon that doesn't do anything special. So that's why it's number 5 on the list. You know... It's a kind of old weapon. I guess a Dex Cerberus Incarnon could be kind of cool, too. Like, is there a stat difference here? It's got a little bit better crit chance, but it's got worse base damage and other stuff. A lot worse status chance. So, yeah, Cerberus probably would be the best call here. All right, moving on to number 4. This is one that a lot of people might be like, yes. Yes, indeed. It's going to be the Tigress. The Tigress Prime is number 4 on the list. And why is Tigress number 4 and so high on this list? Well, that's going to be because if you watch the previous Duviri trailers for Duviri, you would see that in the initial versions of Duviri, the Drifter was holding the Tigress in the video. Look at this amazing build. The Tigress in the video, and once Duviri came out, there was no Tigress Incarnon. So I feel like we are owed a Tigress Incarnon because I seriously thought there would be one after watching that Duviri trailer. Why does the Drifter have the Tigress in the trailer? Why is the Tigress... so bad compared to back in the day? Did you know this thing used to be like the meta primary? One of the meta primaries. Because of how many slash procs it could pump out? Well, the thing is, they changed how status chance per pellet works on shotguns, and now this thing no longer pumps out like 10 slash procs per bullet. It's only going to be like a couple slash procs, and especially if you have a slash proc focused build. So there's 9 slash procs in 2 bullets. But yeah, back in the day, it would be doing a lot more damage. So I'd say you could make this thing have a crazy Incarnon. Not to mention, this is also not exactly meta in a horde shooter like we have right now. 2 shots to the magazine, you have to reload. I've got a 5-round magazine build right here. But yeah, this thing, it doesn't take care of hordes very well. If you were to make an Incarnon mode for this, definitely make it like, either make it where it's like, if you fire a shot of this thing in Incarnon mode, it will guarantee kill something. Like, think of like the super shotgun from Doom or something like that. Or make it where it's like, it's AoE. You know, everyone loves that AoE upgrade. So make it either AoE or make it have so much damage that it's like back in the day when this thing actually had crazy scaling with status and was viewed as the meta primary. And of course, it also has terrible crit chance, so a crit buff would be nice. And there are other Tigresses too. I'd probably go with the Sancti Tigress, as this one does have more crit chance, but it has worse crit damage. And look at that base damage, 1,560 in the Tigress Prime, 1,260 in the Sancti Tigress. These weapons do have potential, but they do need a bump, in my opinion, to actually be on the top tier alongside the new stuff we've been getting. All right, now the last couple here are going to be some ones that I think definitely could use a little bit of work. Now, this first one is actually going to be, number 3 is not going to be a weapon that's terrible, but I think it's a weapon that is, it's confusing why it doesn't do more than it does. And that's going to be the Glaxian. The Glaxian is an ice gun, and it has pretty good base stats. It has base cold damage, so you're going to be stuck with elementals no matter what you do. And I guess I was messing with my builds here. We'll just show this with a cold build, I suppose, on like these random enemies. So what this thing does is it's basically a status proc. It's got good crit too. It's a status-focused elemental cold laser, and that might sound really good to you. The thing is, unlike Mr. Freeze, this will not freeze enemies solid. But something it does that is kind of weird is once an enemy is dead, their corpse will sometimes explode in ice. There you go. That right there, the frozen corpse of enemies, that is just a visual thing. They are not frozen solid. So I would say, if you're going to make a Glaxian Incarnon, make it where the Incarnon mode can actually freeze enemies solid while they're alive. So in that case, if I had the Incarnon ready, I could be able to freeze these heavy gunners, and they would not be able to fight back. And make it a wide beam too, like a gigantic freeze ray, maybe a charged freeze ray. You charge up the freeze ray, once the freeze ray is fully charged, release the charge shot, and like the entire hallway is going to be frozen, or it will do so much damage that the entire hallway will be dead, and anything that didn't die in that one shot will be frozen. And it would maybe take a while to recharge it or something. I just think that this thing is such lost potential. It's an actual freeze laser that only freezes enemies visually when they're dead. And there are abilities in this game that can freeze enemies solid while they're alive, like Frost's 4th ability, Avalanche, like Gauss's Thermal Sunder. Those abilities can freeze enemies solid. This thing can't. And read the description. A cutting-edge, halogen-cooled electron accelerator capable of snap freezing a target in moments. Lies. A lying description here. It only freezes enemies when they're dead. It will cold proc them a couple times. That's all it's going to do. So make it where this thing can either freeze enemies solid, make it where it's going to have big AoE, or both preferably. I think this thing has potential, but it's just not really fully realized, especially when, the Ignis Wraith is an option. The Ignis Wraith is going to be better for killing enemies than this thing. Ignis Wraith is going to have more AoE than this thing. This thing doesn't really exist to most people, unfortunately. Speaking of doesn't exist to most people, number 2 is going to be the Axolotl Prime. Yes, this thing I bet you forgot existed, because I bet DE forgot existed too, because the Riven stats have not been buffed in a long time. The Riven stats on this thing are 2.dispo out of 5. And we look at the stats, this is not exactly a weapon that deserves to have its Rivens not buffed. We've got a 15% crit chance, a 2x multiplier, a mostly impact-focused status pistol. And back in the day, this actually was considered good, hilariously. One of my first endurance runs ever, I used these pistols. So I think since they've been in the game for so long, they deserve an Incarnon upgrade. Now, what would it be as far as an upgrade? I'd say, you definitely would want to give some more base crit chance, but the Incarnon alt-fire mode, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe something that would make it more slash focus. It has good status chance, but it's got bad slash weighting. Make it where it's slash focus. Make it where it's got some built-in heat. Archiplasmor shots are always pretty easy. How about some chaining headshots too? While we're at it, you name it, they could throw it in there. So that's my idea for this. I just think this thing is unfairly treated by DE. It's an impact status, akimbo status pistol, and it doesn't get its Riven's buffed ever. So I haven't even given it a chance recently. No Incarnon unlocker, no nothing. So I think this thing is outdated enough that it could definitely use it, and I bet a lot of people that enjoy the axe stilettos would really appreciate it. Because the funny thing is, I used to actually really like these weapons, but I gave up on them after a while because it's just like, what is the point of this? My other weapons do so much better. And it's not a full build, technically, but yeah, I mean, not exactly a stellar performance. And Incarnon would definitely throw it up to the next level. Alright, moving on to the number 1. Now, I know I said earlier in the video, no weapons that already have alt fires are allowed. We are going to make an exception here, because this weapon, it's just it's the ultimate meme of the community. The Stug. Did you know the Stug already has an alt fire? But I think the Incarnon Stug would be fair to maybe put the meme to rest. If you're not going to do an Incarnon Stug because it does technically have an alt fire already, how about a Kuva Stug then? Give us some base damage. Just make this thing good. Look at these stats. This thing is so bad. It says it doesn't even have status chance, dude. It's got crit chance, crit multiplier, and damage fall off. It does not have status chance here. I believe that there's like a hidden stat or something. I've had the UI bug on this weapon so many times, but yeah. Oh, there we go. Status chance 0%. This is a full build. And I've got status chance 60/60 mods on here. These status chance mods do nothing to this apparently, and it says 3,600 damage total. I don't believe that. But yeah, the thing about the Stug is that it's viewed as one of the worst weapons in the game, easily. What it does is it fires out, like, I guess I'm gonna call it ice cream. It's an ice cream launcher, and the ice cream does as much damage as maybe it's a marshmallow launcher actually, because it feels like if firing marshmallows at enemies how much damage it does. Okay, that guy's dead. That guy's dead. These are butchers. But yeah, this thing actually has a charge shot. On an armored enemy, you're getting like Furax, Wraith, Incarnon numbers on this thing. The alt fire is gonna be the exact same thing as a normal shot, but it just takes a while to charge it up. That's your alt fire for the Stug. It's the same thing, just it takes a long time to charge up one shot. So yeah, this thing could definitely use some work. I'm getting status procs hilariously, so I guess the explosion has status chance, but the primary shot does not. Either way, it's not a lot of status procs. I think I saw like 1 status proc there, 3 status procs for like an entire magazine. So yeah, this thing could definitely use a buff. A Kuva version could make sense. A Incarnon version could maybe make sense, but the Incarnon version would likely be better. So I know I cheated on my whole list where I said I can't have a weapon that already has an alt fire, but I think the Stug could use it. And then what would you do for a Stug? I'd say maybe make it where it's a gigantic ice cream. Maybe it launches an ice cream truck at the enemies. Or just something. Like you could change the flavor of ice cream. What would you guys do for a Stug Incarnon if you were to make one? Or if you were to like suggest one to DE? Let me know in the comments down below. Also, I know this list was not really the one that everyone else would agree on. If you have a list you'd like to post, feel free to do that in the comments. I know it's going to be entirely different. I want to make sure a combination of stuff that's been historically used to be kind of good. Historically, like either was discussed in the trailer, like the Tigress, or, you know, something that I have nostalgia for, like the Glaxian. I wish the Glaxian was better. I wish the Atarax was better, with slide crit and all that. So, hope you guys found this video fun and helpful. Just a little fun thing in between, you know, the Incarnon resets. And I'll see you on stream later tonight. Take it easy, guys. Peace.